Michelle, are you ready?
I was born ready.
She's an award-winning author, speaker, and podcast host who serves on the National Faith Advisory Council. She supported Donald J. Trump for president before it was cool, from her she shed in her beautiful backyard. This is the Michelle Moore Show.
God's Not Done. I love that song. Oh my goodness. We played it a number of times through the last couple of years. It's just one of my favorites. By the way, I had an amazing conversation this morning with a guest, a future guest that y'all are going to get to meet, actually connected and recommended to me by Dr. Sean. And man, it's going to be a great guest. So anyways, but God gave me a word for him in the middle of our conversation. And it was just such an amazing conversation. God can use anybody to just speak life. And, it's just amazing. So, Dr. Margaret's here. I told y'all yesterday she was coming. Told you last week. I hope y'all are ready. And Skater 9, I saw your question. We will ask her about that a little bit later. Okay. So just know that we will cover that. She's going to be here. So today's title is Setting the Record Straight on Many Myths and Lies We've Been Told Concerning Our Health. Ooh, okay. We got a lot of things to ask her about today. Get your notepad out and take some notes because y'all going to need to do that, I'm sure. I do want to let you know, though, last time she was here, YouTube took the video down and grounded me for a week. So I call it being grounded. I feel like I'm 7 and getting grounded. So what we're going to do is if you're watching on YouTube live, just know that as soon as we stop live streaming, we're going to delete this YouTube video. So this interview. And so you'll be able to watch it anywhere else that we stream to, especially like Rumble and X, but just be aware we have to take it down because, you can try not to get into trouble. All right. So let's go on ahead and bring Dr. Margaret in. I'm excited that she's here with us today. Hello, Dr. Margaret.
Hi. So nice to see you, Michelle.
It's nice to see you, honey. So before I forget, I want to make sure everybody knows that's on X. So Dr. Margaret on Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 13th of December, 2025. Ooh, I can't believe 2025 is almost over. But Dr. Margaret is hosting a Twitter space, and yours truly is going to be the guest. And we're going to be talking about all different kinds of stuff when it comes to toxins and reports that's come out, all different kinds of things about makeup and the things that you're using to clean your face and what they're finding and all different kinds of stuff we're going to share. And so I'm very excited about that and honored that Dr. Margaret has asked me to be on this to share just, what's going on and what we're doing at Godly Granny to try to help those who need the help. I just told you this morning, when we were talking about the different things, and I said, well, that's how men get breast cancer. It's the deodorant with the aluminum, and we sell aluminum-free deodorant. But a lot of people don't know that. They don't realize that the aluminum in the deodorant leads to breast cancer, and that's how men can get breast cancer. So anyway, so wanted to make sure that people were aware we're going to be doing this Twitter. They call it a Twitter space. And it's 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern, this coming Saturday, December the 13th. And I look forward to, I guess, hearing you there, not seeing you.
That's true.
Okay. All right. I got a list for you, Dr. Margaret. I'll be like, okay, well, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Yes, we're going to start with blood pressure. Now, I don't know if you know this, but, I follow you on X and I saw this post. And so you got like the whole history of the high blood pressure thing. You said changes in the definition of high blood pressure with the years. So there are 3 screenshots that I took, and we're not going to read through all this because it is detailed. She went into it like ain't no other. But I'm putting them on the screen so you can go on ahead and pause the screen later when you watch this on a replay, and you'll be able to read up on all these details that she shared on X. But give us kind of the lowdown on it. What's the deal?
There we go. Yeah, that last one was the summary of the trend. So in the beginning, the blood pressure was acceptable up to 160 over 100. And over the years, they've been lowering that standard so that they can treat you for high blood pressure with lower and lower blood pressures. So
Okay.
that means that by the time we started at 1984, they lowered it to 140/90. Then 2015, they wanted it to be less than 130/80. So that made in 2017, instead of just having 32% of people in America with a formal diagnosis of high blood pressure, that increased to 46%. Almost half of America suddenly had high blood pressure.
Now, when somebody is diagnosed with that, I'm under the impression that then they get on some kind of a medication that's supposed to get all of that under control, supposedly. So are you saying that almost half of America is on some type of a blood pressure pharmaceutical drug?
It sure seems like it. And interestingly, there were also, if you look at the early years and the amount of antihypertensive drugs out there to treat high blood pressure, it was mostly diuretics, Lasix, furosemide. A lot of people were on that. And that caused a few problems. When you urinate out, because it gets rid of water, a lot of people call it a water pill. You lose potassium. So then you had to go ahead and have a potassium pill with it, the prescription potassium pill. And then they had other inventions over time, so that maybe in the 70s, there were 20 different blood pressure prescription pills that you could choose from. And now there's more than 135 with new classes coming out left and right.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. That's a lot to take in right there. Okay. So what do you have any kind of
I
feedback
lost my
or thoughts?
sound. Oh my goodness.
She's
I
going to
can't
take you.
hear you.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Wow. Let's see. I lost my sound.
You might want to go out and come
At
back
one
in.
point, I lost my entire internet when I was interviewing somebody. The Wi-Fi from the main house shut down. Let me just play around with this some more.
Okay. So I find that interesting. I'm wondering, like we got
I'm
the big
sorry, I
four.
probably will have to pop out and then pop back in again.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to say, I find it interesting. And, I know about okay, we have Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer. So I'm just kind of wondering, when you have 120, 130 prescriptions that are out there, it just makes me curious as to how many of those prescriptions are from the same drug companies. You know what I mean? And so, because how many drug companies are there? So listening to her say these kind of numbers, I'm just kind of wondering about that, and also I'm reminded suddenly also of the gentleman who I watched a video where he said there's like 250,000 prescription drugs that are available. And he says none of them cure anything though. So, okay, let's pull her back in. Okay. Do you hear us now?
I can, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So with blood pressure, I was just saying, I wonder how many drug companies there are because, when you're saying that there are 130 something different kinds of pharmaceutical options, drug wise, just for somebody who supposedly has high blood pressure, I'm just wondering how many of those are made from like Pfizer, for example, and how many are made from Moderna. Does that make sense? It just
Yeah,
seems odd to me.
it makes sense that the companies that started producing it in the beginning were a jump ahead. For example, there was a pill that included a diuretic plus the potassium in it in one pill. So that's one of the things that they got smart with was just instead of prescribing two separate pills, let's come out with a brand new pill with a patent on it that has a 2-in-1 special. So they're still doing that. They're still trying to come up with different combinations. The other thing is this. So you go into the doctor's office. What do you get? You get a syndrome because you're stressed. You had to get dressed, park, walk, wait, etc. And by the time you sit in the chair, what is your blood pressure? It's higher than it would be at home, which is, kind of a good indicator of how you handle stress. If you had that same similar kind of stress somewhere else, like with work or parenting or anything else, friends, family, So one could say that even if you had a blood pressure of 150/90 in your doctor's office, it doesn't mean you walk around with that blood pressure the rest of the time. So what we're finding, especially in our elderly, is that they'll take blood pressure pills and then their blood pressure will be too low. Then their kidneys won't work as well, their brain won't work as well. And so then, we have I think the, a plan that would be overprescribing.
Yeah. And then not only that, but you're causing other issues with people that really didn't have an issue in the first place.
Exactly. So if people want to protect themselves a little bit and arm themselves before going into the doctor's office, a great strategy would be to get a blood pressure cuff that you have at home and then take your blood pressure at varying times during the day. Then if your blood pressure is 150/90 in the doctor's office, you can say, but doctor, look, I have this diary here. I've been keeping track of my blood pressures all along. I'm like 110 or 118/68 most of the time. So I think I'm just stressed being here. And if you say that with a little bit of a smile, they'll go, oh yeah, you're probably right. You don't need anything.
That's such a great idea. I never thought about that. That's a great idea. Because then you really are familiar with where your blood pressure usually sits. That's very good.
I
Okay.
also like, Michelle, if I could just add in here, because of lung issues and COVID and this and that flus, I also recommend people have a pulse oximeter at home. Now, you can't expect to know everything there is to know about one of those little things that goes and beeps and gives you two numbers. One is your oxygen in percent, and the other is your heart rate. So you should know what your blood pressure is. You should know what your heart rate is usually. If, mine's in the 60s, yours might be in the 70s, somebody else might be 90. But that way you can say, well, that's normal for my heart rate too. And the other thing is you should know what your oxygen saturation is on room air. If you're 91% all of the time because you've been smoking for a long time, then that's important, so that if you go to the emergency room and they say, oh, your oxygen saturation is 90%, you need a ventilator, you can say, no, it's always 91%.
That's very good information to know. Wow. Especially with all the stuff going on from, WETC and how they use those ventilators. And if people are watching that know, they know. Okay, so cholesterol, let's talk about that. So cholesterol always seems like it's such a bad thing, but then I've been seeing and reading where like it's important that cholesterol is actually around the brain. The brain needs cholesterol. So please explain what in the world is going on with cholesterol, and does cholesterol just need a good PR person? Like what is going
Right?
on?
Yeah, I think it does. I think cholesterol does need a good PR person. In the first place, your brain is comprised of a lot of cholesterol. You need it for your brain structure. The second thing is that cholesterol is considered to be the mother molecule. So if we start like up at the top and here's cholesterol, we can go down and we could do male and female hormones. So you've got the testosterone, the DHEA is the precursor to testosterone. So you've got DHEA, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. You've got all these other hormones. It's your sex life. It's your hormones, your sex hormones, your bone density, and your brain function for testosterone especially. And women are low and can be low in testosterone also. It's not just men.
That's right. That's right. We have a lot of women actually who, because I started looking into it, I thought, why are we selling with Godly Granny so much unscented? We have unscented testosterone cream, and then we have it in Rustic Man, and we have it in Man of Valor, the 2 cents for men. But we sell so much of the unscented, and then I got to realizing I think it's women that are on the testosterone cream, maybe even more than the men. And so we sell 2 to 1. We're selling the unscented.
Wow, that's a big difference. Well, I think maybe some of that might be that the men have normal testosterone levels. They have a sex drive. The women don't. And so they do that so that they can have sex with their husbands and be good wives and please their husbands and please themselves too.
Well, here's the other thing too, though. So, my husband, I think I told you he's on testosterone cream, and I don't even really know why he started taking it, but I think he just heard, me telling him about it and stuff. And his isn't about the sex drive. He says that it's about his energy. And then he took it for a couple of weeks and he said that he decided that, this isn't really doing anything. And he said, so he decided that, he was going to get off of it. And this is what Eve had told me that a lot of men do, which she's our formulator. And she had told me this story or told me this, and I didn't say anything to anybody, didn't think much of it. He was like, okay, whatever. And sure enough, this is what he ended up telling me. And sure enough, it's exactly what she said. So it took me aback a minute. But he said, I got off of it. And the next day I was dragging. He said, here I was thinking it really wasn't doing anything. He said, now I don't miss a day. He said, it really opened his eyes. And what she had said is men will get off of it thinking it's not doing anything. And they'll realize a day or two later, holy cow, I had so much more energy. It was doing quite a bit. The testosterone's not just about sex drive, and it can give you that energy. It can give you kind of that vitality some. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that testosterone affects us and impacts us in so many ways. And so having low testosterone can affect and impact us in those ways as well. And so it's important that people understand ours is food for your body. Your body will know what to do with it. And so we just want to remind everybody that, and the wild yam. And so, but I find that very interesting. And
yeah, you bring up a good point. I think, if you walk into a room and you're saying to yourself, well, why did I come in here? That's like the kind of forgetfulness that people start getting as they age. And some of that is testosterone related, because testosterone is actually very good for your brain. Has to do with cognition and thinking.
Yes, that's so good. And energy. And I think also low testosterone, I suspect, could also lead to depression, because it's that, activity breeds activity. And when you're down and you've got that energy drain, I think it'd be easy to kind of be a little bit depressed too, and not have that optimistic way of kind of seeing things and being up and about and out and about.
And think about it too, when you're up and about and you're, playing basketball, or you're taking out the trash, you're putting weight on your body, you are making your bones stronger. So as you age, you're opposing the bone weakness of bone density, the osteopenia, which can lead to osteoporosis for women especially, but for men too. I talk to men all the time that tripped and fell, not even doing much of anything at all at home. They tripped on the rug, they broke a hip, or they broke a femur. And a lot of women that break their hips, especially over age 65, will go to the hospital for a hip replacement, which is actually a very bloody surgery. A lot of women get blood transfusions. The orthopedic surgeons don't wear those little blue booties over their shoes. They wear knee socks. The blue elastic waterproof goes all the way up to the knees, like knee socks. It's very bloody surgery. And a lot of women go from there to a nursing home and they never make it home again. So as you age, you want to take care of your bones however you can. Testosterone is very good at preserving some bone density and keeping you active and feeling great. And then you can, hopefully, you shouldn't be climbing on ladders unless somebody, is holding it for you. You have to watch what you do as you age and try not to break a bone.
Okay, great information. You heard it right here from the doctor. All right, now I want to go back to the cholesterol thing. I have another part to this question for you. And that is, so since the brain needs the cholesterol and it's demonized so badly, but can you have too much cholesterol?
That's a great question. I don't know that anybody knows the true answer to that, but it surely makes sense that if you're eating French fries all day and you don't eat vegetables and you never fast, you're going to have a lot of problems, and not just with cholesterol, but that could be a major problem that leads to many other problems.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
And fasting, Christ fasted, right?
Yes.
So that kind of clears your arteries and your veins out some. It uses storage of fat from your liver, etc. And so that can help clear your arteries and your veins too, and keep your blood clear.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. So I think kind of the elephant in the room when we think about, setting the record straight when it comes to things that we've been told medically related. I think the big one that is probably on the top of everybody's minds is the slowing the spread, C-19, COVID. And so there are a number of things that when I was preparing for today's show that I started to realize, wow, well, then there's this too. And what about this? And so we're going to kind of go through a few of these right now. So the first one, when it comes to vaccines in itself, there are a number of lies in that in itself. And so, but the first one that was one of my just shockers was that, a lot of parents, especially, blindly trust shots at the doctor's office. And I know that I certainly did. And it wasn't until COVID, when I started seeing comments on social media, that I started to say, well, what does this mean? What do you mean? Well, if you only knew what was in the shots that they give your kids at the doctor's office, what do you mean? And so I have 2 sons, and then they're talking about aborted female fetuses and cells being in those and putting them into boys and all these different things. And so it's kind of like when you pull that string and you unravel a whole bunch of stuff. Well, that's what happened for me during that time frame. And so when we think about that, that's a big deal. But one of the big shockers that almost just like I did not see coming. Sometimes you kind of build up and you start seeing things and you go, okay, that makes sense. Oh, sure, they lied about that too. But I didn't see this one coming, and it was SIDS. And so I believed SIDS. I've never heard a whisper or anything. I believe that there was such a thing as SIDS. I want to share a video with you for you to see in the audience, and then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss it. Here you go.
Our perfect, beautifully healthy baby girl, full of joy, full of love, went down for her afternoon nap and never woke back up. The only reason fathomable is from the vaccines. Josie had her 4-month well visit at the pediatrician, and of course with that, our vaccines, and we blindly walked into that, and she received her vaccines for the day, 2 shots of mixed vaccines and then an oral. And 2 days later, our perfect, beautifully healthy baby girl, full of joy, full of love, went down for her afternoon nap and never woke back up. We had no signs, nothing. I mean, she was literally the happiest, most perfect baby. We used to say to each other, we don't deserve her. She is literally the perfect baby. And in an instant, she was taken from us. The only reason fathomable is from the vaccines. Her 11-pound little body could not take all of that at one time.
So I've been dealing with our pediatrician for 14 years with our oldest daughter. She's great. She basically was just appalled at the fact that that she had a clean bill of health, and then out of nowhere just stopped breathing. So she did actually fill out a VAERS report for us. So that's one step in the right direction. Losing her just put a void in us that I don't know that we'll ever recover from.
It's heartbreaking to see things like that. Okay, so Dr. Margaret, SIDS, this is crazy. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on this situation with all of that? And now, like yesterday, they're talking about, we had Steve Jarvis on yesterday, and he was saying it's a win that they're now taking. Is it the HPV vaccine that they're saying that a baby gets, that now they're going to say that it's, I guess, an option or whatever?
The hepatitis B. The hepatitis B, so which babies are only at risk if their mom has hepatitis B because she's an IV drug abuser, she has liver failure, sharing needles, IV drug needles. So everybody thought it was silly that an infant, a newborn baby, would have that risk if the mother tested negative. Yeah, so that's a big one. But yeah, look at the SIDS connection. I think that before now, when babies were dying in their cribs, that people used to accept that it was SIDS and nobody knew what it was. Nowadays, I think people are smarter, and the general public is bringing that connection into mind. It's interesting, but I don't know that we'll ever get a lot of the doctors to make that connection, because they don't get the connection with vaccine injury. If you have a seizure, in the waiting room an hour after you got a C shot, right?
Mm-hmm. How do you not make the connection? Are they that brainwashed in
You
medical
know,
school?
I think that's a great question. Like, why wouldn't they? What do they have to lose? What if they saw it over and over and over again and they connected the dots, wouldn't they stop giving the vaccines? So I think this is the reason why, and it has to do with incentivized care. We have a copy of an Anthem Blue Cross letter that gave physicians reimbursements based on the percentage of patients in their clinic who were fully vaccinated. So they got a certain amount of 60% were vaccinated, 80%, 3 months later, 90%, 3 months later, 100%. Dr. Mary Talley Bowden on Twitter, she has a tweet showing the letter and saying in her tweet, if I had done this in my clinic and vaccinated 100% of my patients, I would have made $1.5 million
Yeah,
in a year.
yeah.
So why should
And
they make the connection?
she refused to do it. She's another truther doctor. And she has continued to tell the truth, and she chooses to do a lot of that on X. And so that's how Dr. Margaret and I know about her. If you're not on X, you may not be familiar with her, but she had a lot to say about ivermectin as well. And the Texas Medical Board went after her, just like the California people went after Dr. Margaret. And so she's another doctor that has been telling the truth, like Dr. Margaret. So, okay. So, and there is so much of an incentive. I have some people that called me during the whole slowing the spread, and they were just beside themselves, have 3 children. 1 or 2 of the children, I think it was 2 children, needed to go to the doctor for their checkup. And what ended up happening is they said, hey, look, we really want to just kind of put off shots this time, and we'll revisit it. They didn't say they didn't want to do it. They just said they wanted to put it off. And you know what the pediatrician told this couple? They called me that night, all distraught over the way the doctor's appointment went. And the pediatrician said, if you're not going to give your children the shots and follow my medical advice and blah, 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 then you need to go find another pediatrician. And they were like, Michelle, we didn't say we weren't going to do them. We just said we need a little bit of time. You know, they knew what was going on with the whole COVID thing, and they were worried. And, you know, they were kind of waking up to all of that as well. And so that was the way the pediatrician was trying to bully them into doing it. So it was just a nightmare. Okay. So when it comes to vaccines,
if I could just say, like, if you have a child and you're having second thoughts about getting your child vaccinated and you have an upcoming doctor appointment, one of the things that I've heard other doctors say is that you can always, just say that you have a wedding coming up, if you do, or you have a trip coming up. I'm not telling anybody to lie. I'm not suggesting you do that, but this has been said. I have a trip coming up and I really don't want to take a chance that my child could have a fever while we're away. Can we, just table this until the next visit, or, for a couple of weeks? And at least it will buy you some time to investigate it further. Maybe I highly recommend these days that you do not necessarily tell them you want to get a second opinion, because that could trigger a CPS investigation. The doctor could get really upset about it and consider you to be relatively belligerent, I'm sorry to say. But one of your readers there is saying, no nonsense, Netta.
Yep.
There have been parents who have been wrongfully imprisoned or had their children taken away from them exactly for asking for a second opinion on childhood vaccines.
Yeah, we covered a story here about 6 months ago. A couple had 5 kids, homeschooled the 4 kids, had a baby, 5th child. And the pediatrician was a reporter. I didn't know this. So reported to the state, to CPS, like what you're saying. And so how in the world is that even possible? And they ended up leaving and going to Texas. They left their state. It was like New Jersey or somewhere that they lived. They ended up going to Texas, and then they're wanted for fleeing, so to speak. They took their children out of state. So what? And, they were free and could do whatever they wanted to do, but they were reported by their pediatrician. So, these doctors can be some of the worst ones around, when it comes to help you trying to protect your children. They're the ones that can throw up the red flags.
And that's otherwise known as medical kidnapping. And the doctors are usually, it's quite common that the doctors are the ones that trigger such an investigation. We have also Shelley Boyce. Her son was getting chemotherapy for ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She had him on a whole lot of regimens that were naturopathic, and with the knowledge of the oncologist, and they weren't doing certain things like vitamin C, et cetera, because it might have interfered. They were doing all of this together with chemotherapy, and they got blood drawn, and then the doctors accused them of not giving the chemo when they had a blood level of the chemotherapy level in the blood. So they got reported to CPS, and it was completely malicious, according to their lawyers, the word that they use. So you just cannot be too careful. You have to be careful about what you say and what you do. And it's nice to, not have to learn these things yourself, but to learn them through somebody else.
Well, and really, essentially, her son was too healthy.
That's exactly true. That's exactly true. And I'll say too that, Cheryl, I don't know if she delivered her baby at home, but she was, homeschooling all her kids. And delivering a baby at home is a great option. Although I could tell you, I talked to Abby, the midwife. She's on Twitter too. She has like the equivalent that Laura Bartlett has on the I do not consent form. Abby, the midwife, has that same type of documentation for labor, for delivery, and for newborn care, having to do with the vaccines and keeping your placenta, for example. So hospitals are a little bit likely to, succumb patients to their own protocols when you have a right to walk in there and say, no, this is what I do and do not want, especially if you're having a baby.
Okay. I'll reach out to Abby and we'll see about getting her information for our
Yeah, you would
viewers.
love to have her. You would love to have her on.
Okay, sounds good. All right, now we've got RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. He's talking about his son. Let's take a look at this. So he had a son, he has a bunch of children, and he has a son, though, that by the time the son was about 2 years old, had already been to the ER 22 times. This has to do with allergies. Where do the allergies come from? Let's take a look.
Became involved, as you pointed out, because I had a son who was severely anaphylactic to not only peanuts, but all tree nuts and a lot of other stuff. He made, I think, 22 emergency room visits by the time he was 2 years old. And so this really focused my attention. He came close to dying so many times. And as you know, the whole world becomes hazardous. You send your child to a birthday party, and maybe the cake had, peanut oil, or somebody cooked in the same pan something with peanuts in it 2 days before. And so everything is a trap, and everything is a potential killer of your child. I really focused my mind on it, but and I was focused on, okay, what are we going to do to treat it and to prevent him from getting sick? And I also, my mind immediately went to the place of, why is this happening? 5 of my 7 kids have allergies. What happened? Something happened. And it appears to have happened sometime around 1989, 1990. So you have to look at an environmental toxin that became ubiquitous during that year across all the different demographics, from Cubans in Key Biscayne, Miami, to Inuit in Alaska. Everybody started getting these allergies at that time. And why have there been no studies on that? Why are not people looking at that? Why isn't the entire scientific community focused on saying it's a very easy studies to do?
Okay, what do you think, Dr. Margaret?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. I think it's terrible. Look at peanut allergies, airplanes. When we flew in the 70s and 80s, there was no such thing as a peanut allergy.
That's right. They were giving them out like candy on the flights.
Exactly.
So I think it's interesting that he's, sharing some of this, and, it is my belief they know. He's saying, well, why aren't there some studies? Oh, I think they know. I think that they're just, maliciously keeping the information away from the people. Let's put it that way. that's where I stand. That's what I think is going on. And I suspect, come on, they know what's causing allergies. They knew there was no such thing as SIDS. I mean, I'm just not buying it personally. That's where I stand.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Now we know parents are smarter now. There are a lot of studies out there. If you're pregnant or if you're a newlywed, there's nothing that can replace you doing your own research. And once people start studying it and reading it, and owning it for themselves, then I think they become very empowered to have a conversation or to, argue their position. How to present that to your doctor is a different matter. Especially, I let people know to make sure you visit your pediatrician, even while you're pregnant, to make sure, who's going to be in charge of that baby when the baby's born. We have right now, even though the hepatitis B vaccine is considered to be an independent choice between the mom or the parent and the baby, a lot of hospitals still have the protocol, and we already have babies getting the hepatitis B injection without the permission of their parent after specifically saying no. So, I think a lot of people are going to go with home births coming forward, and that's why they're also trying to get rid of the midwives.
Well, this was my point yesterday that I said to Steve Jarvis. I said, Steve, I said this on the show. I said, I don't count what they're doing with the shot as a win, because these are the same people that didn't care if we had a religious exemption, a valid religious exemption right. We had a right to be able to say that, hey, look, I don't want the shot, because of my faith. They wanted to still force it down your throat. And so these are the same monsters, and you think that they're going to care that somebody says, "Oh, now there's an option for a baby." Now, I like hearing this about Abby the midwife. Now, this is interesting to me, but even with that, you got to hope and pray that these monsters, because that's really what they are, these monsters will honor what you're hoping for. I mean, who's to say that the shot doesn't get given to the baby and you don't even know about it being given? So at this point, knowing what we know about ventilators and what all happened during the slowing of the spread, yeah, anything's on the table at these places. Anything, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I'm concerned for our babies too. I mean, these are newborn babies. If our country, if our population can't take care of our babies and our seniors, then what does that say about us as human beings? And also, what does that say to the evil out there who keep getting away in their boldness with more and more? I believe that we need to still be as bold as they are and increase it by one. Just be strong and don't be afraid to speak out and protect our children.
That's so good. That's right. I think that's why a lot of people are having a hard time with the Epstein list not being released, because it's like, okay, there's a lot of people getting away with doing harm to children. Mark Taylor and I were just talking about that a little while ago before the show. And, I think that's a problem. There's a lot of manly men who are Trump supporters, and it's just so happened. And they're seeing that this list is not being released. And now suddenly we're being told, oh, it's a big hoax. And it's like, what? A hoax? Well, then what's Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for, supposedly? And so it's like, how is it a hoax? So I think that's a problem. That's a big problem. And so, okay, I want to move on though, when it comes to when we talk about the vaccines and we're talking about the COVID and all that stuff. Another thing that we were told was that wearing face masks were a great idea, even though the face mask turned out to be more like expecting a chain link fence to stop a mosquito from getting through into your backyard. So share with us about that.
Well, it's yes, the science of that is that the particulate matter that we were trying not to inhale was much smaller than the circumference, the little square pixels in the mask. So number one, we never should have thought it would be a barrier. Exactly right. On the shopping cart on the beach trying to hold sand, right? Or a tennis fence trying to keep back a mosquito. I mean, it was absolutely absurd. But then the other thing that you're getting is that you've got this mask, straight up to your face. And so, you're inhaling the plastics, right? The parabens and the phthalates, et cetera. And you're also increasing your CO2. So when you hold your breath, your CO2 increases, which can be helpful if you're a baby who's not breathing. If you stop breathing, that will trigger you to start breathing again. And if you're under anesthesia, I can cut your breaths down per minute and build up your CO2 so you'll start breathing on your own while you're still under. But if you're walking around in school, you don't want to be walking around with a high CO2 level. It's just not good for your brain. It's not a normal place to be. So I think also it's the social experience. Especially with the children, they're missing out on facial expressions.
Yeah, and they were saying that there were children that were having a hard time with their vocabulary even, and starting to talk was being delayed with children. Also, Kathy O'Brien, I've interviewed her a number of times. She was an MK Ultra victim, sold into the MK Ultra program by her father when she was a little girl. Don't know if you're familiar with her, but one of the things she said is they used face masks as well. Think about Michael Jackson. She pointed that out. And so Michael Jackson wearing a face mask, but when you are starving the brain, one of the things that Kathy O'Brien talks about is that it keeps you from being able to think critically as well. So you can't even really think for yourself and how to fix a situation you're in, or even really stand up. And we saw a lot of people just going along with whatever crazy story was being fed to them, and doing the mask thing and taking the boosters and, all the other stuff that was going on. And it was like, I would have never in a million years thought that the way that people behaved and the things people did would have ever happened. If you would have told me the week before, I would have said, there's no way. But there was, and it happened on a wide scale, and it's a whole scary thing. I mean, think about it. We had a dad who took his daughter to the park and he got arrested for wanting to be outside. We were being told to stay out of the sun.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. So I remember thinking to myself, I gasped and told my mother-in-law, I said, oh my goodness, they're trying to kill us. That was when I knew they were trying to kill us, is when they said to stay out in remember the conferences, the media conferences every day. And so in that, do you remember Fauci being on there and they were talking about stay out of the sunlight? That's when I gasped and said, oh my goodness. I told my mother-in-law, I said, they're trying to kill us. And she said, what? And I said, she come running in the room and I said, did you hear what they just said? And she said, no, what? And I said, they just said to stay out of the sunlight. I said that they're trying to kill us, because common sense says, think about plants, right? Plants need a few things in their environment: water, good soil, and what else? Oh, I don't know, sunlight. And so that told me right there, I smell skunk. And that's when I realized something was terrible. And then you have people who are walking around outside by themselves on a sidewalk, nobody else in sight, and they're wearing a mask, just like in the car. So critical thinking was not happening. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of oxygen getting to people's brains because they were wearing the mask.
That could very well be. And I read something and I saw a picture, but way back in the 1950s, you had sunbathing on the roof of hospitals literally with lounge chairs and patients laying on lounge chairs in the sun.
I've seen medical beds out in a field. I've seen cribs at the back of a hospital in the grass, cribs lined up. Beautiful. And babies, children, toddlers were out getting their sun treatments.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
And that reminds us too that our glasses, our windows, our car windows, our building windows are made to keep out the best sun rays. So if you want to get a little dose of sun, go outside without sunglasses on and try to get the white of your eye somewhat exposed to some sunlight. But I know there are sun gazers. There are some people that like to actually look at the sun or very close to the sun for a period of time regularly.
Especially early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware about the sunglass thing? That sunglasses are lead to you getting a sunburn?
Oh, no.
Yeah, because your brain is not getting the message that your body, your skin is in the sun. And so what happens is, I forget what it automatically will create, some chemical in your body.
Mm-hmm.
but it won't create that chemical because it doesn't know that you're in the sun. So that's why people get sunburn.
Wow.
It's the sunglasses, and of
That
course
makes
you get
sense.
chemical,
That
and
makes sense.
you get chemical burns with sunscreen.
Mm.
So I have said over and over and over with Godly Granny, we will never, and I know never is a long time, but I'll say it again today, we will never have a sunscreen. Never.
That's beautiful.
Never. And that's why you don't need it. Okay, so that's another thing. Now, help us. Do you know about the Spanish flu connection when it comes to the face masks?
Spanish flu and face masks. I don't know exactly the Spanish flu and face masks. No, I know Spanish flu in hospitals, question mark. But tell me more about the face mask
Okay.
and the Spanish flu.
So the way that I have learned and understood it to be is that people thought they were getting some kind of flu. And really what it was is they scared the El Crapo out of everybody. Just sound familiar? And guess what happened? They had to wear masks. They got sick. They went to the hospital. And then there you go. What the Spanish flu really was the face mask fiasco. They were getting sick from wearing the masks.
Oh my goodness.
Now you tell the part you know.
Well, yeah, if we look at the Spanish flu and who died during 1918 to 1919 era, significantly more people died in the hospitals that they were going to get saved than at home, especially in the big cities like Philly, New York, and Chicago. 75% of the people in Philly died in a hospital, 70% in Boston, 80% in Pittsburgh. And very, very few people died at home. So I'm not sure. And I think a lot, just a normal, like low amount of them were from pneumonias, as opposed to what we're seeing like with COVID, more with ventilators, et cetera. But I don't know exactly what the cause of death was in the hospitals, what they said it was.
Wow. Okay. Wow. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is ultrasounds. So you said you had some things you wanted to share about ultrasounds and fact or fiction. What's really going on? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Well, that's a great question. I did a little bit of a deep dive on fetal ultrasound. So you get pregnant, they want to give you an ultrasound, determine if it's a boy or girl. I didn't want to know. Whatever God gave me, I wanted to know. I could wait. But then, what is that ultrasound? It actually is a different form of radiation. And there is a CNN interview by Jean Carper way back like in the 80s sometime. And she discovered that one fetal ultrasound of a baby in the womb, a pregnant mom, was equivalent to 250 chest x-rays. And you'll see that there's a history of some women getting that fetal ultrasound who ended up with a miscarriage that same day, that same night, or very shortly thereafter.
Wow. Okay. Brain dead. Now, when you were here last time, which by the way, the 2 times that Dr. Margaret's already been here, those show links are in today's show description on the Michelle Moore Show Rumble channel of this show. So just a heads up on that if you want to go back and maybe miss those or want to see something back from those. But when she was here before, we were talking about the whole brain dead fiasco. So what's the fact or fiction on brain dead?
Well, sorry to say that this is yet another lie. There is no such thing as brain death to the point where you would approve an organ transplantation of a loved one. Dr. Paul A. Byrnes, Byrnes, is probably the oldest gentleman who was there and was involved in some of the ethical decision making around this. But I can tell you, I was at a Ivy League university on the East Coast at the time when we had our entire anesthesia department was for the very first time going to get one patient, the first patient into the operating room to procure the organs. And I can tell you that that person who went under, I wasn't there, I was not the anesthesiologist, had the same increase in blood pressure that you and I would have when they made the incision, the same responses to the general anesthetic, to the opioids, to everything. And that they wouldn't want the organs if they were bad, if they were dead. So they have to be alive by definition. All you need is a little common sense and pray about it for a little bit. And then I think most people will realize that there's something wrong with that.
2 + 2 is not adding up, is it?
Exactly. It's very sad because they make a whole big deal out of it and make it sound like you're being so altruistic. But there have literally been people who have signed that over on their driver's license. Maybe they're 18 years old. Their mom comes into the ICU and says, there's no way you're going to do that to my son. They will call the police on you. The police will walk that patient down the hallway to the operating room, and they will procure the organs without apparent consent if that person is of age. There is a way to reverse it if you've already done that. I actually have a whole Substack on that. There's a couple places you can go. There's a national registry, and then you, of course, should go back to your state and get that redone.
Wow. On your driver's license?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. At the DMV? Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay. Another one of the real big one that seems like it's such a big thing here lately. And that has to do with all of the medical fiasco that has to do with Ozempic. Let's take a listen to this video on Ozempic, and then we'll get Dr. Margaret to weigh in.
A clip that Tucker Carlson just posted on his Twitter feed. Oh, I think it's the second one down from the top of his Twitter feed, and I urge you all to look at it. And it's a clip, it's an interview that he did with a former pharmaceutical company executive about Ozempic. And it's really revealing. It's an extraordinary piece of television, and it's a really wonderful expose on this product. One of the things that he said is it's a product that is illegal for weight loss in Europe. It's made by the biggest pharmaceutical company in Europe, Novo Nordisk. And they say in their materials, we're going to get all of this money from, this is going to be the biggest medical product ever made. And 100% of the money is going to come from the United States of America, because we have the greatest obesity issue in the world. We have the greatest diabetes affliction, and we're the only ones that will allow it. And the impacts of this drug are just terrible. It paralyzes the stomach. It stops a lot of the serotonin that we produce happens in the stomach, part of the microbiome, and it destroys our capacity to produce serotonin. And it has on its label now, I think, black box warnings about suicidal ideation, and that, and then it works while you use it for a lot of people, but it causes severe gastrointestinal problems. And the moment you stop using it, you regain all the weight. And meanwhile, your stomach's been paralyzed, and a lot of those impacts last, apparently, according to what they said on the program, after the use of the drug is terminated. That's some of the most interesting. He talks about the amount of lobbying money that is going into the AAP, that the NAACP is now a registered lobbyist for the pharmaceutical companies, and on their website they label criticism of Ozempic as racist. And the amount of money that's going into into the medical associations that are supposed to be, that pretend to be protecting our health, and to Congress and to the press and all of these, they basically undermined all the institutions of our democracy to make us the sickest country in the history of the world and the sickest generation in American history.
Wow, that's such a great video. He's really dropping those truth bombs. Okay, Dr. Margaret, what are your thoughts? What do you know? Oh, and you're muted.
Thank you. I think that one of the worst side effects of Ozempic is blindness. People have literally woken up blind in both eyes. I don't know anybody that would accept that as a side effect. It happens more often in the type 2 diabetics, people with a diabetic retinopathy. But if you ask me, there's got to be a better way than losing your eyes, because it's a really terrible thing to go blind.
It's insane.
That's really, really insane. In fact, I do believe there's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the manufacturers for that. The other thing is that when people go off of it, or if they stay on it a little bit too long, you also get muscle atrophy. So you're going to lose your muscle mass. You'll become like wasted looking, and you lose your strength and your ability to age well. I mean, that's like accelerating your aging by quite a bit. So those two things in my mind, I think most people would instead opt to do something like maybe eat down or give away all the processed food in your kitchen, and then go on the Whole30 diet for 30 days. There's Facebook groups, there's books on it, videos everywhere. It's free. Fast overnight. Fasting is completely free. However
Yes.
long you could go without eating, just increase it by an hour a day here and there. There's got to be a better way, and we need to stop thinking that for every problem that we have, we simply need to do a pill or an injection in order to fix our problem. And we need to stop thinking that.
The Holy Spirit revealed to me recently, when I say recently, maybe less than 2 months ago, showed me that we've been MK Ultra'd when it comes to pills, what you just said, Dr. Margaret, what you just said. And so it's like we think, and really this goes with creams. Like I've been teaching this through the whole Godly Granny stuff, that you actually absorb so much more through a cream or a liquid than a pill. But yet we've been so MK Ultra'd, we've been so brainwashed. Everything's always about a pill, if you think about it. And so, but you're only going to absorb at best about 6 to 7% of whatever that pill is for. And so, like when I was on liquid collagen, and had people saying, "Wow, what are you taking?" and all this stuff. And so, they were like, "Well, I've been on collagen for years, and I don't see any difference." This was quite a few years ago. And I was saying, "But you're taking a pill or a powder from the drugstore." And so, but that's the first thing right there, where when you take a liquid or you have the cream, then you're talking about your body absorbing it at a whole nother level. That's why we don't sell any pills at Godly Granny, for example. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're doing the creams because that way your body will absorb what you're paying for. And so it's just absolutely insane. And that's the Holy Spirit that showed me. He said, everybody's brainwashed into thinking a pill is what we need. And it just really stunned me. It's like, that's so true. I never thought about it that way. And right in line with what you just said as well. Okay, so
I can't wait to stop seeing big pharma commercials on, like some of these football games my husband likes to watch. I am flabbergasted at how many times we have to hear the same commercial over and over again. Just flabbergasted. I thought we were going to get rid of that.
Yeah, it's not gone away, has it? And so that's part of many things that are on the list that we're not seeing any improvement on. I haven't really watched a lot of television for quite a while, but I happened to be watching a movie with my husband recently, and there was a commercial, and it was a drug commercial. Now, this has been forever since I have seen a drug commercial. And I don't remember the specifics. Like, we're talking like just a few days ago. And it was so horrific. I just remember going, what? Like, you may have kidney failure and thoughts of suicide. And I mean, they literally, I'm not exaggerating. It was so crazy.
Yeah.
And nobody seems to think anything's wrong with that. Like, hello. And so I'm like, what in the world's wrong with somebody to even be able to risk that? Like, and your liver may
our
just
poor
shut down.
our poor teenagers, they get depressed, and then they want to put them on a fluoride, a Prozac, a fluoxetine, that has a fluoride. It's why? So that they can become numb to the outer world. And the pain doctors, or if you have pain, they want to send you to get a gabapentin or something. Well, I had a pain clinic. I never once put anybody on gabapentin because it's highly addictive. If you put them on, you can't get them off. And who wants to live like that? Like almost nobody. There has to be better options.
Yes.
That's why I like your pain creams. I love your pain creams. You should do something locally. Like if your knee hurts, put something on your knee.
Yeah, it's magnesium.
Yeah, that's great.
It's magnesium. You know what? I have had trouble with my right foot. And so where if I'm on my feet a lot lately, I've been on my feet. And so more than what I would have ever been. And so I've had problems with my right foot. So I'm actually using the stress relief magnesium cream, and it's fixing the problem. So someone said, well, have you not used the pain relief magnesium cream? And I said, well, no, because I just happened to be putting the stress relief on for stress relief. And I started noticing my foot wasn't giving me any trouble all day long. And so I just never changed to the stress relief because the pain relief, the pain relief, because the stress relief works. But again, they have a common denominator, and that is magnesium.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
It is amazing.
Most people are low on magnesium anyway, and it is very well absorbed through the skin, which is why the Epsom bath salts absorb. But yeah, almost everybody's low on magnesium. It's good for your muscles. It's good for your heart.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I know we have a number of viewers who want to take advantage of you being here and want to ask some health related questions. We're going to start with Skater 9. Skater 9 is asking, what does the doctor know about, is it SIBO, capital SIBO? And
Yes,
says any suggestions other than antibiotics?
Okay, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I know some people even want to, recommend surgery, and some people do have some anatomical abnormalities on there. But yeah, the antibiotics, advanced antibiotics or rotating antibiotics are a big one to try to keep the bacterial load down. But there's other, sort of big pharma drugs. There's low dose erythromycin, which will move the bowels forward. That antibiotic is not used as an antibiotic dose, but as a lower dose. There's a low dose naltrexone, which a lot of people haven't heard about. It's compounded by a local pharmacist into capsules from a powder. So it's handmade, but it's really actually pretty cheap. Also, ginger might work. And then there's, of course, there's a special diet for that. This low FODMAP, FODMAP, which is a low fermentation eating diet. So unfortunately, there's no easy fix. But again, I'm a big believer in fasting and prayer, and I hope that helps just a little bit. It's a little bit of a complicated problem to have. I'm sorry you have that.
Are you familiar with black seed oil?
Yes, black seed oil is Nigella sativa. It's actually a herbal equivalent of ivermectin in many ways.
I wonder if there's a chance, I'm almost convinced that black seed oil helps with funguses and different infections.
Mm-hmm. I think it does. Yeah. The Egyptians used to bury themselves with some of it. It was a very, very high herb in Egyptian times.
So you can take it by mouth, not just put it topically on the skin. And so as you read it right on the bottle. And so I'm just wondering, and I don't know why, this just came to me. So I'm not saying this is a thus saith the Lord, but I would definitely, yield to anything you think. But what about that? Could that even be a possibility for somebody with SIBO?
It could be. It can't hurt, just like ivermectin can't hurt. There are so many things that God gave us that can't hurt. I wish I knew more about it specifically, but I just don't. That's
okay. We'll expect a full report next time you're here.
There you go. There you go. I can look that up for you. I'm happy to do that.
Put it on your list.
That's okay. I brought my pen. I told you I brought my pen.
Okay, because I think I've had some great results with it. That's why I'm wondering. I think I had a fungus that was like on my skin, on my face for, it was years ago, and nothing was working. And then I came across, the Holy Spirit led me because I was praying one morning about it. I was like, what is going on with my skin? And I ended up curing myself within like a week. And I was taking it and applying it on topically, and it was gone.
How
So
beautiful is that?
yes, and it had gone on and on and on, and I could not figure it out, but black seed oil cured it.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
just want to let everybody know there's something to that, and certainly make sure that you get the cold pressed, hexane free, organic black seed oil. Okay. Okay. So I don't have it here with me. It's in my bathroom, or I would show you what it looks like, but the one that I get. But okay. So the next one, let's see. Jay Churchman is asking, what would cause low blood oxygen levels, and what are some natural remedies? The pulmonologist has no clue. Thank you.
Well, if you're seeing a pulmonologist, you would think it's because you have an abnormal chest x-ray of some kind, maybe an abnormal blood gas that shows low oxygen. So a low oxygen, I'm not sure how they're measuring it. If you take that little pulse oximeter that goes on the finger and beeps, to give you your oxygen, blue nail polish will mess that up. Cold hands will mess that up. So I hope there's a blood gas showing a low PaO2, or the partial pressure of oxygen, on there. And I'm assuming that you saw the pulmonologist because you're having trouble breathing one way or the other. So that could be either the CO2 exchange or the oxygen. There's two separate things with breathing in and breathing out. What can you do to increase the oxygen? I mean, that's a really general question. I wish I had a diagnosis to go with that. A lot of people, when they lay around or sit around a lot, their bottom of their lungs, the bases of the lungs, will collapse a little bit. That's called atelectasis. That's why you're supposed to get up and move around, even if you have the flu or COVID. And that's why they give this incentive spirometers in the hospital to get you to suck up that little ball of
Yes.
as you're breathing in, and hold it up there. The whole point is to expand your lungs and keep them there. So if you want to try doing that, take a deep breath and hold it for 20 seconds or 30 seconds. Go kind of long and expand your lungs that way. You'll see on the pulse oximeter that your oxygenation will go up. So some people just need to move around a little bit more and get that atelectasis out of there. And then if you sleep at night, like even if you have pneumonia, even if you're in the ICU, we flip you over onto your stomach and boom, your oxygen goes up. So if you're waking up and want something to help a little bit there, then oxygen will increase to the lungs when you flip on your stomach. The other thing is CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure. You wear a mask, so basically that CPAP won't allow your lungs to empty all the way like they normally do when you breathe. They'll keep a little bit in there so it stays stacked up, and that you're constantly, instead of breathing like this, you're going kind of like this. You're breathing up here a little bit more, and that level stays opened instead of closing.
Oh,
So
wow.
I also would check and make sure you're not anemic, because if you don't have hemoglobin molecules carrying the oxygen, then you'll be low on hemoglobin and red blood cells. So that could be another reason. Otherwise, it's a really general question, but I hope that helps. If you have somebody that tells you that you snore at night, go get your CPAP machine, because all your insurance companies now will do that for free. They'll give you a sleep apnea test at home. They can do all the readings online and get results on that, and they'll give you a machine. And when you have a CPAP machine at home, Michelle, the beauty of that is like having a ventilator. That's your ventilator. You can avoid the hospital, the ER. You can avoid it for any time you have difficulty breathing.
Okay. All right. Mrs. MJ Norris is saying, well, should we be talking about the thyroid? Oof.
The thyroid, yeah, well, as you age, for sure, your thyroid can give you problems if you don't have eyebrows that go all the way out here, and you're cold all the time, and you're wearing a sweater when nobody else is. That's hypothyroidism. If your neck is swollen and you've got like mass there, goiter, or little nodules there, you might be iodine deficient. We talked about that a little bit the last segment we were on. If you have giant bug out eyes and you can see the whites around them and you're hot and you're sweaty all the time, that's hyperthyroidism. But if you're going to, and you can go to lifeextension.com and get your own labs anytime you want. You don't need to go to your doctor to get your blood drawn. They have their own doctors over there. You can order your own thyroid function tests over there as well. But if you're going to test that, go ahead and test your vitamin D level, as well as your testosterone, estrogen, and for women, progesterone as well, and get
Yes.
those tested.
So I think I said this when you were here last time, but my iridologist, Nathan, has said that when you have a problem with the thyroid, that it is a secondary kind of thing, that there's usually that it's an indication there's something else wrong. For me, it was my adrenals. So for those that are watching, a lot of my viewers have the Wave Watch, and I just want to remind you that there are some frequencies for the adrenals, which that was where my miracle came in. And so I just want to remind everybody there are some great connections there for those frequencies on the Wave Watch. And don't forget that if you're struggling with that, that would be a good one. Also, lots of success stories with inflammation on the Wave Watch. Okay, so let's move on. Doctor tells me for my age, I guess. So Christ Believer is talking about her blood pressure, that for her age, she shouldn't be over 140 over 90.
Well, I would take your blood pressure at home and make sure it stays low.
Yeah.
Probably
I
lower
like
than
that
what it
idea.
is in the doctor's office.
Yeah. I'm going to ask my husband about that. Now, the blood pressure thing, I want to go back to that. Wasn't it, we had a viewer who said for 2 years their husband has been taking NAC. Wasn't it NAC? She said, and he's not on blood pressure medicine because he's been on NAC. Am I remembering that right?
Most people go to garlic first before they go on NAC. But N-acetylcysteine is a precursor to glutathione, which is the most potent antioxidant that our body has. And there are different versions. As you know, the FDA doesn't regulate supplements at all. So everybody's on an honor system to put NAC in their NAC, or vitamin D in their vitamin D for that matter. So you want to make sure that if you get something like that, it's a good one. From what I know, there's no direct correlation that I know of offhand between NAC and the blood pressure. Although it does break the disulfide bonds of like spike protein, right? The augmented NAC does that. And that can lead to an increase in nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator. So anything that, will add nitric oxide to your system will help your arteries tone down and open up so that your blood pressure goes down.
All right. So the augmented NAC was the one that you had a connection for. Producer Ron, can you put that on the bottom lower third here for us? Thank you. I knew you'd have it. He always keeps everything. So, okay, tell us why, NAC versus augmented NAC. Help us understand.
The augmented NAC has been developed by researchers in Italy who looked at it in order to optimize it, because the regular or the standard supplement isn't well absorbed. It does a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it doesn't do as much as it could. And they were optimistic that because it can break disulfide bonds or a sulfur-sulfur bond in, for example, the spike protein, that they could do something to that molecule and make it better. So they used some quantum, vibration, some patented technology to optimize it, and then did some lab studies showing that when compared to standard NAC, it protects vitamin C from oxidizing or from getting broken down 7 times better. It can dissolve blood clots better than regular NAC because it can make your blood thin a little bit. And it also denatures or breaks apart the spike protein molecule much more than the regular standard NAC. So so they're thinking if you have symptoms of long COVID or post-vaccine injury, that's a good remedy for people to start with.
Okay. All right. Thank you for explaining that. Okay. So let's look and see about a couple of more questions before we let you go. For the last year, my blood tests have shown low white blood cell count, no other issues. Could too much zinc cause this, or what can I do to raise my number? I take multiple supplements.
That's a good question. The short answer is I don't know, because I don't know what all you're taking and what your other medical problems might be. In general, if you are feeling well and doing well, I don't know why you had your blood drawn in the first place to know what your number was. So sometimes I would repeat that and make sure they didn't mix up the blood tube with somebody else. Assuming that you have had it repeated, I would get a subset of T8 to T4 cells, which paints like the HIV kind of picture that is post-VAIDS, or like a vaccine-induced AIDS. Some people have that.
Okay, good point. Zofran Woods says, nice to have the doctor back again. I have back problems. They did one ablation and it didn't help, and so they want to do it again in a different place. What's your opinion on that?
Wow. I had a pain clinic. I have a book on Amazon. It's a guidebook to low back pain. Happy to email it to you if you want a PDF for free. I would try. Most people these days don't want to go anywhere near a hospital, right? In the alternative medicine world, you want to avoid anything like that for as long as you can, and assume it's also not going to work. A lot of my patients had failed back syndrome from multiple surgeries, which made their condition worse and worse and worse. So I would pinpoint the surgeon. I would get more than one opinion. I'd probably get 3 or 4 different opinions, depending on what the exact problem is. And then I pin them down to what percentage chance are you giving me that you will 100% fix my problem, so I never need to see you again. And if the answer is 50-50, then you got your answer.
Yeah.
So ask them that question and try everything else first, and avoid surgery for anything, and avoid going under anesthesia and going into a hospital or clinic. And if you do, make sure you have the I do not consent form from idonotconsentform.com.
Yes. Laura Bartlett was on the show about 3 weeks ago or so, and that's where that form comes from. Producer Ron, will you put the link to that show in today's show description as well, for those that might have missed that or need to rewatch it? And that form and the link and everything is also still on MichelleMooreShow.com. 3 words, MichelleMooreShow.com. All right. Ferguson 21 says, I have B17 capsules, 100 milligrams. How would you take this?
B17. Well, I would look at the bottle and see what the bottle says to do. Number one, it should have directions on there. I don't know the dose either.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
The next one, Potters is asking, what is a good cholesterol level and a triglyceride level?
Well, today, let's see what the latest is
changes.
Cholesterol. Yeah, back in 1970 and 1980, you were fine if your cholesterol was 240 or 300. So,
wow,
they keep adding more cholesterol drugs, not as much as they have for high blood pressure, but for sure they've added more and more anti-cholesterol drugs too. So lately, 2013, they want your LDL to be less than 190. Or they have a risk score, your LDL-C, which is a subfraction, they want it to be 70 to 100. So, you need the whole panel for that. You need to kind of look at your liver too. And why would you want a pill to lower your cholesterol in the first place? Why don't you eat less cholesterol or fast every so often? It's free and it's not a big pharma with more side effects, and you don't have to worry about the observational studies showing that a significant portion of people in at least a few studies got dementia early. So I'd keep my brain as long as I could.
Okay. Kobe 2014 says, I'm taking cholesterol meds and it bothers my joints. I would like to get off of it and take something natural. Any suggestions? I've told my doctor, but nothing comes of it. So now I'm taking Easy Time B. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. EZETIMIBE. And so they're taking that as well. Any suggestions or anything that you have?
Well, look at the marketing on that easy time be like they want to make it easy for you to take another pill, or they want to make it easy for you to go down on your cholesterol without having you do some more work. Like, again, I'm going to go back to diet and
Fasting.
prayer, fasting and prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, diet.
Whew. All right. No Nonsense Netta says, my little old neighbor lady takes calcium in large doses. I've noticed in the last few years that she's become more and more bent over and hunchback. I've tried to tell her the amount of and then she goes on for another comment and says the amount of parents they have wrongfully been put in prison for their infants dying is heartbreaking. Talking about the SIDS. That's a good point. No Nonsense. Netta. Die Laughing says, if your child gets a birth certificate, it becomes property of the state. Use a midwife out of the system. C4 says, I had a home birth and never took my son to a doctor. I wonder, C4, did you homeschool? Because now it's a little bit different. Not sure how old your child is, but they were calling me, threatening me at the school saying, your son, boy, if I would have known then what I know now. But it was right before the Holy Spirit started showing me and told me to homeschool my sons. But they were like, you're not going to be able to bring him to school anymore if he doesn't get his shots. You've got to take him to the doctor. So JSFG says, let's see, just last week I had a dog attack. 2 bites, I think is what, there's some typos here. Walk-in clinic wanted shots, etc. I refused all medicine. High blood pressure, 175/90. I healed myself with CDSGG. It's probably Godly Granny. Wave watch, red light, etc. in 2 days. Wow. Yes. So Godly Granny would have helped with pain and stuff, I'm sure. That's amazing. I mean, again, I think this has to do with taking some responsibility, though. You and I were talking about that earlier today, where you said it's hard to even get people to take responsibility for their health care.
It is. And, I get it, because I think the medical profession has traditionally made its white coat be the important thing. And in the old days, in the 50s and 60s, people just, and I've seen this in other cultures, in other countries, where they look up to doctors so much they just do whatever the doctor says and almost don't think for themselves. And now you have permission to think for yourselves, and that's a great thing. People need to get used to researching things yourselves and looking at options, asking questions. And like the little lady who's bent over with the calcium, she's probably, she's taking that vitamin D. Like I take a vitamin D3 plus K2, so it puts the calcium in the bones and not in your arteries. It sounds like she may have a posture problem too, or something genetic or something in her spine. So it's not maybe necessarily just because she's taking the calcium. And then, things like the B17, amygdalin, B17 from apricot seeds. I was showing you earlier today, Michelle, how I made some pokeberry jam, and everybody was telling me don't eat it, it's poisonous, you can die from that. I'm like, I've been eating it for a year, and it has amygdalin. It's got vitamin B17 in the seeds, and I make it with the seeds and the shell of the berry in it, and we're still alive. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cultures around here. There are a lot of American Indians whose grandmothers told their children, you can paint the berries on your face, and the Indians used to paint the horses with the berries, but don't eat the berries, whatever you do, or you might die. And it's just not true. B17 is from amygdalin and apricot seeds and other seeds, and people are using it to treat some very important diagnoses, and they're doing it with success.
Okay, so I'm going to stop here with the questions, and I want to have a conversation real quick about something that I asked you earlier today. I want the viewers to be aware of this conversation where I came to you and I said, I was talking with Steve Jarvis yesterday morning, and Steve said to me, because I called him about somebody who's very close to me, and who has been diagnosed with what sounds horrible, and it's a stage 4 cancer. And so I called Steve after I got off the phone and was praying. It came to me to call Steve Jarvis. So there's some things I know about Steve that most people may not necessarily know, and that is that he got himself into some trouble with some of the platforms because he was talking about DMSO, and he was talking about how to take the liquid ivermectin. And so he got himself in trouble and lifetime bans off of some different platforms. So I called him because I knew about his story and what had happened, to him and his wife, Lynn. And so we were talking about it. And so he said to me that doctors are trained to look at the scans that are made when someone is sick and they're trying to determine if someone has cancer or not. And really what they're seeing are infestations of parasites, but they're trained to see it as cancer. So I asked you today, this morning, if you knew anything about this. And so what do you know?
Well, if we look at a mass on an X-ray or even on a CT scan or MRI scan, of course, they look like ball lesions or a lesion that's a certain shape that shouldn't be there. It's got different density than the normal tissue around it. But yeah, there is a big school of thought that those are really parasites inside there, or a parasite, and it's your body's natural compensation to repair and separate it from the rest of the body by forming a shell around it. And that's really what cancer is. And interestingly, the antiparasitics like ivermectin and fenbendazole also are working against cancer, along with other things like, people are taking a lot of different things alternative-wise, but there's different mechanisms by which the antiparasitics work, and some of them only cover certain helminths or worms, and others are more like antiprotozoal. So yeah, there's definitely some thought that's getting looked at more this way because the antiparasitics are working. When I took my husband was at our first urologist who gave him the diagnosis of bladder cancer last year, after he had been free from it for just a little while. He said I asked him, I wanted to feel him out. So this is how I did it. I wanted to see where he was on this. What do you think about taking ivermectin for cancer? And his reaction was, I'll never understand why an antiparasitic would work against cancer if it's for worms. And so I could have had an argument with him, but instead I fired him in my mind because I didn't want him to write anything bad in the chart, et cetera, et cetera. I already knew I'm never going to come back to see you again. So we found a different urologist who's okay, and he knew that that's what we were doing, and we didn't want the chemo. And he said, bye, see you in a year, and Ed is cancer-free. But yes, there is probably a relationship between parasites and cancer, and some of the tumors that we see are probably parasites inside of there.
So what's happening? Is there an infestation or a parasite or whatever, and then the body is trying to heal itself and attack whatever to heal itself? Is that what the thought process?
Yeah. To encapsulate it off, to separate it off from the normal tissue and kind of isolate it. And one thing about cancer cells, well, a smart question is, why doesn't the immune system kill the cancer cells? We have NK cells that are a subset of white blood cells that fight infection, and the NK stands for natural killer. So, and those kill tumors. Well, one of the beautiful things, I'm actually going to be talking about this in just a couple hours. There are pancreatic enzymes that our body secretes, our pancreas secretes, like it secretes insulin when we eat. Like if you eat meat, your pancreas is going to secrete trypsin and chymotrypsin, which break down the meat. But otherwise, they also break down a protective covering that the cancer cells have that hides them from the immune system. So the immune system just bypasses them and thinks, oh, you're just a normal cell. Well, if you take these pancreatic enzymes, it dissolves that coating. So now your body's own white blood cells can recognize it as tumor, and the NK cells, the natural killer cells, can then kill the tumor. So that's another layer of tumor cells being recognized by the immune system.
Great point. Wow. Okay. That makes sense. That's a lot to wrap my head around. I
I
thought it
know
was
it is.
interesting.
Yeah.
It
If
was
you go
interesting.
to, if I could just say real quickly, if you
Yes.
go to, there's the John Robinson, his father was the one in the 70s in San Francisco who had a Laetrile, apricot seed, amygdalin research and clinic. They ended up having, somebody else had a Laetrile clinic in Mexico that a lot of people were going to for IV therapy of Laetrile or B17. You can go to rncstore.com and buy the apricot seed capsules with the pancreatic enzymes, etc. There's a lot of books there on cancer as well.
Okay, that's awesome. I thought it was interesting today when I asked you about it. I thought, okay, I'm going to tell her what Steve Jarvis said, and we'll see what she says. You were not phased at all. You were like, yeah. There's definitely a school of thought about that.
It's funny. This is how God works, Michelle. Like, if my husband hadn't had bladder cancer, I wouldn't know any of this stuff. I would know anesthesia and critical care and ivermectin and COVID. But because my husband, who's now cancer-free, had to go through what he went through, and I had to research with him. I had to research more than what he wanted to do because I just fed him the information, and then he chose what he wanted to do so he could own it, because I can't take everything for him, right? But
Yeah.
but that's how God works. Like, I'm grateful. So you never know when God gives you a trial that seems scary. You always have to ask what he wants you to learn from it, and how you can use that as knowledge and ammunition. So you fight it spiritually and say, I'm going to learn something from this. I'm going to grow. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to, add this to my my dictionary of things that I know.
It's so good. Yes. And then how you can, help other people with it and help his children. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Margaret. I have enjoyed our time together. Before we let you go, is there anything that you haven't said that you want to say today that you haven't gotten a chance to?
No, you dragged everything out of me that I possibly could. But the only thing I'll add is Genesis 51, right? For what was meant for evil, God can turn it around and not only use it for good, but for the saving of many lives. I believe that the power of prayer, fasting, and prayer is number one answer for everything.
That's so good. Thank you so much. That's so good. Thank you,
My
Dr.
pleasure.
Margaret. She's awesome. Okay, she'll be back. She offered today to come back anytime and answer some more health-related questions. So I want to let you know that we'll have her back maybe sometime in January. Also, if you're on X, don't forget about the Twitter Spaces that we're having on Saturday. Well, she's having it. I'm just the guest. And so it's going to be 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, which makes it 5 p.m. Eastern. This Saturday is the 13th of December, 2025. So if you're watching a re-air and you're like, did I miss it? What's going on? I'll also see if there's a way to record it. And if so, if we can record it, then I'll share it on the Michelle Moore Show Rumble channel. I have to ask her that. I hadn't thought about that till just now. I also want to remind you, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to cut this feed and delete this show. So there's no way YouTube's going to like that. And let me tell you, tomorrow's Wednesday. So we got a documentary, educational video. And let's see, producer Ron, if you'll put that up there. Look at that. Forgotten History. Most Corrupt series. Oh, wow. Look who they got on there. Daddy Bush, the Clintons, and the Obamas. Wow. I'm sure that's going to be good. Producer Ron has seen it and told me it is good. He says it's very good. It's just a little bit over an hour. And he said they do a great job going over some of the big corruption and just scandals and so concerning those three families. So I thought that was great. Don't forget Friday. Friday is what? Gift-a-ganza. All right. So some of my favorite things to be able to give as gifts, birthdays, Christmas, whatever you're celebrating, you're buying gifts. And then don't forget too, the gift-a-ganza. Well, you know what that means. I gotta give some stuff away too. So we're going to be giving away one of each of the things that are my favorite things that we're going to be talking about on Friday. So you got to watch live. You got to enter to win. You got to be watching live. So, get ready to call in sick or whatever you got to do. But, and tell the children that they need to be quiet and it's going to be nap time at 3:00 in the afternoon. I don't know. Call your sister, your mama, and them, and tell them they're going to have to come over and take care of the kids because you got something to do. All right. I hope that helps. So we've got Thursday show and then Friday show, and Friday is going to be Giftaganza. It's going to be fun. You know how that goes. All right. We'll see you right here next time on the Michelle Moore Show.
Hi, I'm Linda Bamber Olson, the inventor of the Wave Watch, the world's first frequency therapy watch. It features over 1,100 targeted frequencies combined into 150 playlists for ease of use. These sounds are acoustical and they move through your body, through your skin and your bones. You don't necessarily have to hear it. As each frequency goes through, it can be realigning, revitalizing, reconnecting, and even rebalancing your body all the way to the cellular level. So that's why we have so many testimonies for aches, ADD and ADHD, allergies, colds and flu, dental, emotions, headaches, joints, kidney stones, nerves, organs, skin health, swelling, tremors, vagus nerve, and so many more. Use this code for $100 off when you purchase the Wave Watch. Thanks for learning about frequencies, using them, and supporting the Wave Watch.
Hi friends, it's Michelle Moore. And when it comes to protecting your retirement, I believe in taking smart, steady steps. Bank of America analysts call gold the ultimate safe haven. And when it comes to precious metals, I trust Universal Coin and Bullion, the official rare coin and bullion dealer of my show. They have been named the best in their industry, both nationally and regionally, by leading organizations. Consider a gold IRA, a time-tested way to diversify your portfolio with real tangible assets, which lets you move a portion of your retirement savings into physical gold, helping protect your wealth from inflation, market swings, and economic uncertainty. And Universal Coin and Bullion makes the process easy. From rollovers to delivery, they walk you through every step, even if you have one with another gold company. Protect what you've worked so hard to build from the team that I trust, Universal Coin and Bullion, at 800-321-8700, and make sure to tell them Michelle sent you.
There aren't a lot of reasons to use Godly Granny products. There's every reason, because every time you twist or flip a cap on something from Godly Granny, you're voting no to chemicals and yes to common sense, but without all the electronic voting machines. With Godly Granny, there's no toxins, no chemicals, no endocrine disruptors, no cancer-chasing filler. Godly Granny is a small batch, made to order, deeply naturopathic wellness brand. Founded on biblical truth, formulated with pure purpose, and handcrafted by saved folks who know that freedom doesn't come from fake lavender and phthalates. Go to godlygranny.com today. Be sure and use the discount code Michelle10 at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order.
For Michelle's social media links, go to MichelleMooreShow.com.